7 years ago, I was a full-time truck mechanic. Horrible. Something that I did because I knew I had to pay the bills. You've got to convince yourself first and foremost. I was confident. I knew it. I knew I was going to be the world's strongest man one day. Put the pressure on yourself and push forward, because if you don't, there's no letdown.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie the Beast Hall!
I know in my mind I am the strongest man on the planet.
We have a new British champion!
You don't see me on that #1 spot, I will die trying.
Unbelievable.
You can do amazing things. You can achieve anything. I'm living proof of that.
The 500 kilo is going to fall. It's going to be me that's going to do it.
500 kilograms is no longer a myth.
World's strongest man is mine. I'm winning that title.
He's gonna win it, and he does!
The world's strongest man! Right here!
Eddie Hall, the greatest surf athletes there has ever been!
Right, Mr. Eddie Hall, what an honour it is to be here today at your beautiful house, I must say.
Thank you.
I'm honoured to be here, the team are honoured to be here, and I'm looking forward to having a chat with you today. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, awesome, man. I've got to say up front before we get started, we're not sponsored by Ray-Ban. We just happen to be wearing the same sunglasses.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd say that up front.
So Ed, I'm going to start at the beginning, a little bit of the growing up, probably up to the age of 10, and then we'll just take it from there.
Well, I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. So I've got 2 older brothers, Alex and James. I'm the youngest. And I mean, growing up with 2 older brothers was hell on earth. Got to be honest, if anyone out there has got brothers or sisters, you can sort of like relate to me a little bit. It is hell on earth, the competitiveness, the arguing, the fights. And I suppose that's what made me who I am today, is having 2 older brothers always beating down on me, always telling me what to do and bullying me about. It does blueprint on you for the rest of your life to fight back and be competitive in everything that you do, and to not take things lying down. If someone's trying to take the mick or bully you in some way, or you stand up for yourself. And I think that's one of the traits of being a younger brother that I think's transferred over into adulthood very, very well. I was born in Stoke-on-Trent, and I've stuck to my roots. I'm still here. Mum and dad, normal people. My mum was a swimming teacher back in the day, and my dad was a health and safety officer for about 40, 50 years. So, just normal parents, really, normal, hard-working parents, very humble beginnings. And I was very, I don't know why, but having 2 older brothers, I was very boisterous, very outgoing, very energetic. And we now know, I was undiagnosed ADHD and maybe some other sort of, I don't know what the right word is, on the spectrum, so to say. So, I was a very energetic child, very energetic, always bouncing off the walls, always talking back to people, shouting, fighting. And that didn't go down so well at primary school. I was asked to leave from my first primary school. So, from sort of age 8 to 9, I was moved primary school. So I was expelled from one and went to another one. I was very competitive in terms of sport as well. Anything that, a running race, badminton, tennis, anything that was sport related, I was absolutely obsessed with being the best. There was no like, coming second place to me as the first place loser, and that's been bred into me from the day one. And with my mum being a swimming teacher, I was sort of made to swim, basically. 2 older brothers being competitive swimmers in a swimming club, and I couldn't be left at home alone, so I was dragged to these swimming sessions, and I hated it. I'll be honest, I hated it, and I hated it because people were better than me. I was the youngest there, and my brothers are beating me, and their friends are beating me. And I just couldn't take it. And for me, that is, again, just having 2 older brothers, it's something that I just found very hard. So I trained hard, and I was obsessed with swimming. I was obsessed with being the best from such an early age because of the older brothers. And going into competitive swimming is something that it's a big part of my life. You know, a very, very big part of my life. It taught me a hell of a lot of what you put in is what you get out. I started swimming from age 5, and, well, no, I tell a lie, I started swimming from age 2. And my mum tells the story, and I think this is a great sort of blueprint for the rest of my life as well. My mum tells the story of how I learned how to swim. And I think the story goes is we're all on holiday in Portugal. And I couldn't swim. So I kept jumping into the pool, and someone would have to fish me out, kept jumping in, somebody would fish me out, jumping in. I must have done it 1,000 times, you know, kept jumping in and drowning, somebody would have to save me. And I think, you know, after about the 1,000th time, I think mum and dad just had enough. You know, they had enough of jumping in, saving me or my brothers or whatever. And my mum, you know, jumped in this last time, my mum just said, fuck him, sink or swim, make a choice. And, you know, I'll come back up to the surface and I doggy paddle to the edge, and I swam, and that's how I learned how to swim, really. And I think that's a great sort of motto that I've took for me for the rest of my life is sink or swim. You've got two options. You either sink and dwell and sink down in the negativity and depression and whatever else, and your life can get turned inside out in the matter of moments, or you swim and you move forward and you push that negativity aside and you push forward. So that little sink or swim story is something I like to say when I talk to people. It's just something that I feel, you know, it's something that blueprinted on me from a very young age. So going back to the swimming with my older brothers, I couldn't take it. I couldn't take losing to, you know, the friends and whatever. So I trained super hard. You know, I even got to the point where at 5 years of age, I was, you know, researching what to eat, what to drink, how hard to train, how much to rest, how much to sleep. Just got super obsessed with it, and very quickly sort of overtook my brothers in the swimming world. And then I got to the national championships, which is, they do it in Ponds Forge in Sheffield. Once a year, and they have the national championships, and they find out who is the best in the country for the age. And I won it in age, I think it was age 11, won it age 12, age 13, and I was winning all distances on freestyle. So I was winning from 50 meters all the way up to 1500 meters. So I won everything, which is unheard of. You know, I was setting British records. I was setting records that, you know, gold Olympiasts, if that's the right word, Olympic gold medalists were setting. Back in the day, I was breaking their British records. You know, I was destined to sort of be an Olympic swimmer. Because I won the nationals so many years in a row and got all the golds, I was entered onto the world-class potential squad, which is basically the junior Olympic team. So
was that the vision in your mind to get to the Olympics?
That was my vision from a very young age, was to get to the Olympics and be. That was like, you know, if you ask me, you know, when you ask a kid, what do you want to do when you get older? Mine was, I'm going to be an Olympic gold champion swimmer. That was my, you know, that was my number one go-to. That was going to be my career. So I got entered into this world-class potential squad, and that's pretty much where it all went downhill, to be honest. It's when it, you know, this profession, so to say, became too professional. You know, it became, all the fun went out of it. You know, it went from me enjoying myself and training for myself, and me then trying to please an Olympic coach and do what he says and set these distances that he says. So it just became too regimented and too military.
And what age is this at?
Probably about 12, 13 years of age. And it sort of ruined it for me. It just went from something that I enjoyed and, you know, something I got up and wanted to go to the swimming baths and train, to something that I absolutely hated. And I just couldn't envision myself doing this, you know, working under this Olympic coach, going into the Olympics and just being miserable. And I suppose it was around that time that a lot of things imploded for me. You know, about 13 years of age. 13 to 14 years of age is like a really difficult point in my life. I managed to get expelled from school around that period. And again, it was just from having all these triggers that were coming into my life. Started suffering with anxiety. That's how it began. Little anxiety attacks, which, you know, I didn't really understand at the time. And then things started going wrong. Like, my nan got diagnosed with cancer. I managed to get a girl pregnant. I got expelled from school, and I started to hate the swimming. So like my one thing that I was able to go to and sort of get rid of that negativity and train got destroyed by being on this Olympic junior squad. So all these things sort of happened at once, and I sort of imploded, and the anxiety got worse, and I eventually went to a doctor, I think about 14 years of age, and he sort of diagnosed me with depression. and anxiety and depression, which I didn't understand at the time. But I was having thoughts of wanting to kill myself. I didn't understand what was going on inside, and all the hormones and whatever else, and all the things that were happening around me. And I was prescribed Prozacs, and I was sent to go and see a psychologist, to sort of help with the problems I was having. And that was just a super tough period in my life, really, where probably for 2 years, I was on Prozacs and seeing psychiatrists, and I'd just been expelled from school. All my pals were at school studying for the GCSEs, and I was just at home moping around all day, doing, wouldn't really leave the house. My swimming really dropped off. I was still trying, but just lost love for the sport, so that just sort of dimmed away. So yeah, that's sort of when it really got tough for me. And
I mean, what was life like at home at that point with your mum and dad? Were they supporting you? Did they not know what to do? Or, I mean, again, your brothers, what were they like during that time?
I mean, back then, anxiety and depression wasn't a thing. If you said you were depressed, the cure was for someone to slap you and say, snap out of it.
Yeah.
There was no like understanding of it at all. If you said to someone, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack at school, you'd be laughed out of the classroom. Even the teachers, they'd take the piss left, right and centre. So it was a real difficult point for me that, you couldn't express it. And I will say this, though, one of the best things I did was tell my mum. And I did tell my mum I was suffering with this anxiety and having these horrible thoughts. And it was her that made me go to the doctors.
So how did you describe it to her? Because at them times, you wouldn't have known it were anxiety. Did you just say you felt this like sick feeling inside, or these thoughts? Or?
Yeah, I think I just, described what was happening when I was having the anxiety attacks, and then described, how I was feeling in general. I think, she knew, every parent knows the child, I went from being this super energetic, boisterous lad, like the alpha male at school, just beating about and having a laugh, to this like destroyed former self. A shadow of my former self, just someone that's moping around, not really laughing and joking, black circles under my eyes because I wasn't sleeping, just really moping around and depressed. And obviously my swimming was falling down. So yeah, I think my mum asked me on the back of that, really. She noticed those changes and was like, what's going on? And I opened up to her, and I'm glad I did. It did, it pushed me to go and see the people I should have been able to go and see on my own back, which was the doctors. And very thankful for that, for my mum making me do that.
How then did you regroup as such to get that next stage of, new goals and coming out of that pocket of, did it slowly lift, or did you act on it?
I think,
so obviously 16 you leave school.
Yeah, I mean, I left school at 14, I was expelled. I think what it was, I was at home moping around all the time and just, spending all day wanking and playing the PlayStation, whatever else, what you do when you're that age. And I think it was, mum and dad just sat me down one day and were like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? What are you doing? You're pissing your life up the wall. I was going out drinking all the time and doing drugs and shagging birds. Just being a proper idiot.
I was going to ask that, because that makes it 10 times worse as well the next day and stuff, doesn't it? And it just all adds up. And
of course it does. No, of course it does.
It's just an absolute cycle of
it's
thinking you're going to escape by having a drink.
That's exactly it.
And then the next day being 10 times worse.
It's an escape. And that's exactly what it is. You're trying to escape the nightmare of having the anxiety and the depression and everything else. So yeah, I was the lad that would, I did quite well, because I earned quite decent money when I was that age, surprisingly. I was always wheeling and dealing, and obviously money from the swimming and whatever else. So I was always the lad that could go out and buy the beers and buy the whiskey and the wine and whatever else. And I'd always be the one pissed up and doing the drugs and bang, cocaine and whatever else. And it was just like that escape. And yeah, virtually every night I go and get fucked up.
Really?
Every night, Monday to Sunday, and always in trouble with the police. There's always something that mum and dad had to come and pick me up from the police station, probably at least once a week at some points. It got quite bad. So yeah, quite a rebellion on the back of that. I think what brought me out of it was doing all this stuff, getting into trouble, drinking, doing drugs, and obviously my parents see that, and my dad sat me down one day like, what are you doing? You know, you're going to do crap at your grades at GCSEs and your high school and everything else, and all your mates are doing great and your brothers are doing great. What the fuck are you doing? And I was like, oh, I don't know, you know, a bit of a down moment. And they said, well, why don't you go to the gym? You know, just pass the time during the day. Why don't you go to the gym?
So at that point, you'd not even been really to a gym before?
No. About 13, 14. I've never done any gym work in my life. So they signed me up at a gym down the road, you know, a big commercial gym. And I started going on my own. Just you know, very amateurish, just going and doing the biceps and the triceps and whatever else. And then very quickly, there were guys in there that had been bodybuilding, powerlifting, all sorts. You know, you guys in the 50s and 60s been doing it for years. And they saw me, and then you make friends, and they took me under the wing, you know, and start training with these guys and going into the sauna and the steam room with them and hanging around with them. And they taught me how to train my body, you know, do the body parts and break it all down, how to rest and what to eat and how to recover. So it was these guys that sort of showed me the ropes and got me into bodybuilding to begin with. And I honestly think that these guys taught me some great life lessons, not just how to build my body up, but mind as well. Because, you know, they were telling me the life experiences of, you know, wives and divorces and kids and buying houses and selling houses and jobs and pensions and whatever else. And these guys filled me with knowledge. You know, I was like a sponge, just absorbed it all. And one of the things that imprinted on me was not only the training side of things, but also like how to invest in yourself financially as you're getting older. You know, I bought my first house when I was 18. Wow. You know, and you know, I got a job at 16, and I was really good at saving my money up. And I had quite a flash car at 17. Bought my first house at 18. Bought my second house at 19. You know, just really on a roll, very clued up with that kind of thing. And I put it all down to these guys at the gym empowering on me, you know, knowledge and how to train and everything else. But it was that training, it was going to the gym. When I was going through this period as a teenager, it was going to the gym and coming back and feeling better about myself. Now, whether that was from the training itself or just from the social life, I don't know. But training for me was my void filler. It was the thing that made the depression dim down or, you know, just feel less. And I just realized that was the way forward. Every time I went to the gym, I came out and I got this sense of euphoria. And I slowly over the years just got better. So I guess by mistake, really, I found the gym, and I found out that it was my way of dealing with anxiety and depression. It was my void filler. And to this day, you know, not a day goes by where I'm thinking about or doing something in the gym to better myself every day. And it really does help with the mental health side of things. You know, it's definitely did save my life.
Staying on your childhood, I want to know, let's say from like 5-6-year-old, who inspired you? Did anyone inspire you at that age? I know you've mentioned Arnold before, but at that point, did you ever watch strongmen, or did you ever look at bodybuilders or athletes, or was it just swimming? Who inspired you at that age?
One of my I've got two memories from my very early childhood that I remember. Number one is watching Arnold Schwarzenegger walk into a bar butt naked and kick the shit out of 20 outlaws and ride off on a motorbike. That's my number one memory. Number two is watching the World's Strongest Man. Watching these huge men pull planes, pull buses, lift Atlas stones, lift logs, and achieve the title of the World's Strongest Man. Those are my two earliest childhood memories. And why? Because humans cannot help but admire human strength and human physique. Fact. You can't help but admire it. And I remember watching those two things as a child on TV and looking around the room, watching The World's Strongest Man and watching Arnold Schwarzenegger on TV, looking around the room and seeing my mum and dad and brothers with the jaw on the floor. And I thought to myself, I want that reaction. I need that reaction. And I think that blueprint on me as well as I said to myself, when I get older, I'm going to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm going to be like those guys on World's Strongest Man. And I remember at age 5, thereabouts, 4 or 5, watching The World's Strongest Man and saying to my mum and dad, I'm going to be on there one day. I'll be the World's Strongest Man. And I'll never forget, my mum, dad and brothers burst out laughing. all laughed their bollocks off at me. And I think that stuck with me as well. It was like a subconscious, like, you bastards, I'll prove you wrong, you know? And I think it really did stick through in my head, getting into adulthood and then getting into weights and then obviously getting into strongman. It's something that really did, you know, blueprint me for the rest of my life.
So that was an early age at 5 that you thought that. Did you watch World's Strongest Man when you went into that depressive part where, like you said, the teenage years and the hormones? Did you at that point, were you inspired at that point, or did you not really entertain watching that type of stuff?
I think when I was going through that period in my life, I don't think I really, you know, drinking drugs was my life.
Right.
You know, that's all I wanted to do, and shag birds.
Yeah.
That's all you want to do at that age. But I know for a fact, almost every single Christmas, we'd sit down and watch The World's Strongest Man on TV, as does most families. You know, you watch The World's Strongest Man on television. And yeah, I think that, you know, that just watching that every year is that little reminder of, I will get there one day, I will be that person. And I think subconsciously, you know, if I'm not thinking it, I think subconsciously it was always there watching, always having that, I wouldn't say jealousy, but perhaps envious. You know, watching these guys on TV, like I want to be that person.
Right, so you're in the gym, you've started training, you start to feel a little bit better in your mental health, you know, you're starting to see results, body strength. I mean, at what point then are you starting to look at big goals of, you know, maybe I could be a strongman, or maybe I could be a bodybuilder? At what point did that click? Because obviously a lot of people go to the gym now, it wouldn't even enter their mind that they're going to become the world's strongest man, or they're going to be a bodybuilder, because it's that.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous goal, isn't it?
It's like a literal, you know, it is a crazy, crazy goal, and I think that's why, you know, you are where you are now. But was there a divine moment when you thought, you know, that's what I want to be? When you started to be in the gym, I mean, were you lifting weights thinking, fuck, I'm a bit extra human here, or?
There's a bit of a story behind that. So obviously I lifted weights just for, you know, I wanted to have that physique of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Who doesn't? So, you know, I went to the gym for that reason. And I found myself getting stronger than everybody else in the gym very, very quickly. You know, I overtook these guys that have been bodybuilding and powerlifting for 40, 50 years. I started to overtake them in the strength world, lifting more than them, doing more reps than them. And it was my brother, actually. I got to about age 19. And I was, you know, just looking on social media like Facebook. I think Facebook just started then. You've got YouTube.
This is about 2005, 2006. Is
something
that right?
around there, yeah. About 2007, something around that. And I remember looking on these social media channels and thinking, and also watching it on TV as well, watching The World's Strongest Man, and thinking, I could do that. I could lift that. I could pull that bus.
That's crazy to think that, though.
You know, age 19. And it was my brother who actually said, well, Ed, why don't you go and test yourself? Why don't you, you keep talking the talk and you keep saying how strong you are against these guys. Why don't you go and prove it? So it was my brother that entered me in my very first strongman contest. He found me a competition. I think it was up in, I always get mixed up, at Blackburn. Is it above Manchester? Blackburn area?
To the left, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think I went to Blackburn, and I did Blackburn Strongest Man, and I came 5th out of about 40 guys, you know, and one of the youngest there. And that's where I got the bite for it. And I said that day, I checked back on my social media, that day I said, watch this space, I'm going to be the world's strongest man.
What were they saying when you've come out with that?
I mean, everyone was laughing. You know, as you can imagine, you know, you tell people you're going to win the world's strongest man at 19 years of age. I mean, if I saw a 19-year-old kid saying that, I would laugh at him too. You know, it's such an ambitious thing to say, especially at that age. And I was laughed at. You know, I was laughed at by friends. I was laughed at by family. And you know, people are laughing. You know, you hear people laugh about you. You know, people laugh behind your back, and you go out downtown, you know, and you meet people. And I was very, very, very sort of outgoing with that, very sort of arrogant with, I'm going to be the world's strongest man one day, watch this space. And you hear people like, you know, you're walking off like, that fucking dickhead. You know, you do get it. And for me, that was just fuel to the fire. You know, it was like, good. I'm glad people are doubting it.
Had you stopped drinking and stuff at that age? Or should I say, had you controlled it a lot better?
Yes, oh no, definitely. Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I still went out, you know, still enjoyed myself. I think, you know, I was still dealing with things at sort of that age, you know, 19, 20. But yeah, definitely dimmed down. I think it really sort of came to a stop when my nan died, if I'm being honest. You know, it's like all that sort of mental health and that depression and anxiety and that dark point in my life. When she died, it sort of went with her in a weird way. You know, got left behind, and I was able to sort of brush it all aside and move forward with my life a little bit. In a way, I know it sounds horrible, but in a way, my nan dying was a way for me to let go and move on. So yeah, it was, yeah.
There's definitely fate, I believe, Eddie, and I believe that these things happen in life for reasons. It's as simple as that.
No, I completely agree.
And it's just how you follow it, isn't it? So right, I've got down here 2010, big year, exclamation mark. Now, tell me about that year.
2010 was probably the year of solidity in my life. You know, I was 22, got a stable job, stable income, met my wife. Well, now wife Alex. Set up a door business. I had a security company. Life was good. You know, everything was rolling, earning really good money, great relationship. You know, a few houses behind me, everything was good. And that was the year I also won my very first national title. I won England's Strongest Man in 2010. And that's when the journey really began. You know, that's when you started to really sort of get serious with the strongman. You know, obviously winning England's Strongest Man was a big thing for me. 22 years of age, the youngest person ever to win England's Strongest Man. And yeah, I mean, that's, I suppose, meeting my lifelong partner, Alex. You know, you know when you meet the one, you know when you meet your wife. And I think me and her, we just sat down and set a load of goals and, you know, get engaged, get married, have kids. What we're going to do with the strongman, you know, she sort of almost planned out what was going to happen. It's what you got to do. And I think every successful man needs a powerful woman behind them. And I can vouch for many world champions and gold medalists and whatever else. To be successful, you need someone behind you to support that network. And I definitely had that. You know, from then I moved in with Alex in 2010. And she was doing all my food, doing all my clothes, looking after the house, looking after the kids. She did everything. All I had to concentrate on was my businesses and training. And that's it. You know, I didn't have to think about anything else.
What was Alex like at that point? Was she like, you know, just, I'm going to support you. It's going to be difficult, but do you think she internally, she knew it was going to come?
I don't know about that.
Do you think she realised in 2010 the long road that it was going to take to get to that point?
I think she believed in me.
Yeah.
I think she believed in my bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. You know, you do when you meet new people, you know, new relationships, you give this big spout, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And she believed in the bullshit, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Is I was bullshitting myself, you know, at 19 saying I'm going to win the world's strongest man. It's such a ridiculous thing to say, but I was so arrogant enough to say it. And she just backed everything I did, you know. And I said what I needed to be, what I needed to do to become the world's strongest man, and that is just basically concentrate on my training and nothing else. And she allowed me to do that. You know, she took charge of everything. So very, very, I suppose the plan, you know, I said this goal to be the world's strongest man at 19, but I would not have achieved that goal if it wasn't for my wife. And I think I can speak for many successful people, is you need that foundation, you need that woman behind you. In a way, for me, it was another purpose to try harder and go out and train hard and be more successful financially. It was another purpose, because not only you've got to support yourself, you've got to support your missus and your kids as well. So it adds pressure on, and sometimes you need pressure. You know, I always say pressure creates diamonds.
100%.
Sometimes a bit of pressure is good in life. So saying these goals out loud and saying them to your partner sometimes creates that bit of pressure that you need to succeed.
What would you say to the viewers about those that have not yet thought of the dreams, and they've got these little ideas, how would you tell them to take that next step to start pursuing the dream, have the confidence to do that?
I think you've got to convince yourself first and foremost. You know, if you've got a dream and a goal, is it achievable? Is it possible? Even if there's a 1% chance, then you've got to tell yourself, I can go for that. Self-confidence is number one. You know, there's a fine line. Well, no, there isn't a fine line. People get mixed up between confidence and arrogance. And for me, I always came across very, very arrogant. But you've got to be. You've got to be arrogant. You've got to believe you're going to be the world's strongest man. You've got to believe you're going to, you know, buy houses, and you've got to believe that, you know, you're going to achieve all these ridiculous goals. Because if you don't, who else is going to? No one else is going to do it for you. No one else is going to believe it for you. So you've got to have that arrogance about you. And you can turn that arrogance into confidence. Arrogance is thinking you're better than everybody else. Confidence is knowing you're better than everybody else. And I knew it. You know, I knew I had the potential. I knew I had the genetics. I knew I had the path. And that's why I said it out loud. I was confident. I knew it. I knew I was going to be the world's strongest man one day. And I think that's the number one thing for me. I would say to anybody out there is be vocal. Put the pressure on yourself and push forward, because if you don't, there's no letdown. No. Do you know what I mean? If you do fail, who have you failed? You've only failed yourself. If you tell your friends, your family, you failed them. And I think a bit of pressure is a key component to success in life, is putting pressure on yourself.
What's your thoughts on failure? You must fail to succeed. I believe you probably think that. Is that right?
100%. You know, I've had a lot of failures in my life, had a lot of losses, and they're hard to take, don't get me wrong, but you've got to see them as positives. A lot of people, I took them very personally. You know, I saw the failures and losses, I took them quite hard. And, you know, when I come back for a competition, or come second, third, fourth, fifth, I'd get depressed. You know, I'd sit at home and get really angry and depressed with myself and think why and what if. But then, you know, you sort of realise that you've got to go through those failures and losses to be successful. And I'll never forget, I was talking with a psychologist at some point through my career, and we're talking about the losses and failures in life. And she said to me, right, let's look at this from a different angle. You keep losing these competitions, you keep coming, you know, 5th, 6th, 4th, 3rd at World's Strongest Man. She said, what if I told you you were only 12 losses away from winning your World's Strongest Man title? And then what would you think? And I'd be like, fucking hell yeah. You're completely right. You've got to go through those losses. You've got to go through those failures to come back, learn, reset, and go back out and achieve your goals. You've got to go to these competitions. You've got to lose at your weak events. You've got to come back and think, right, for me, right, I'm bad at moving events, so I'm going to train more moving events. You've got to go through those losses to make you realise you're bad at those things, to work on them and go back in and better yourself. So losses are a great thing in life. You know, I mean, just gone for me, and I lost this fight to Thor, which was a very hard thing to take for me. But I think actually, you know, it did me a load of good. You know, it turned a lot of things around for me, and I realised what's important in life, and it's what's around me, and it's family. And I lost track of that a little bit on the path. You know, I got a bit obsessed with the sort of financial side, the PR world, and all that. Just got muddled in with the Conor McGregor of life, and, you know, being this big superstar, and it doesn't matter. No. Nobody fucking cares. No. All that matters is family. And that, you know, it's really made me reset and sort of settle back down and get back to my core roots, which is, you know, I needed that. I did need that. So I'm very thankful sometimes for the losses. You've got to go through them.
The thing is with failure is, I think with age, you become accustomed to it, how to deal with it. So what would you say to our younger listeners who are going to watch this, who, you know, are at that age when you went through that bit of a, you know, negative spell, 15, 16, 17, finding them hormones, have got the pressures of social media, they have a little business idea but they're scared to take the jump, or they've taken the jump and, I don't know, the business has failed after 6 months and they're hurting. Or you've got people who are watching this who are starting out in strongman or football careers, and just not being given the pro contract or whatever.
Yeah.
Any type of failure like that, when you're young, it's like it's the end of the world. You know, we've all had it when you fail your driving test or...
Yeah.
What would you say to those guys watching this, and how would you describe to them that it will get better and they will learn to deal with it? Have you got any tips for them?
I think you've just got to take everything in your stride. I think, again, you know, you got to learn from people that have made the mistakes. You know, me sitting here now and telling you about my failures and losses in life, they made me a better person, and they made me reset. They made me build on my weaknesses. And you've got to look at it in that respect. Is that it's like I said, it's like that psychiatrist said to me, you're only 12 losses away from winning the World's Strongest Man. That's when it all flipped. It's like you've got to go through those experiences. So for everyone out there going through those failures, going through those points in their life, whether, you know, they're failing exams or failing at university or, you know, getting fired from a job, see them as positives, because in my opinion, they always make you reset and go back into bigger and better things. So you've got to have those failures and losses in life. Don't think if you fail at something, you're the only one, because you're not. Everyone's got to go through it. Use it to your advantage.
Right, let's go back to World's Strongest Man. So we're in 2010, okay, you're writing down your goals, you're saying you want to be World's Strongest Man, but I mean, if we look at it as a graph, you know, you're there, World's Strongest Man's pinnacle.
Yeah.
I mean, did you set goals from like to get to that level, to that level, to get to that level, or did you just think, let's just go for it and see how it carves out, you know, by entering as many competitions as possible? Or
I think the goals for me were the number one goal was to win the World's Strongest Man. There was no other goals as such. But I think along the way, I realised that you've got to go through certain qualifying processes, i.e., you know, you can't walk into your first strongman contest and win the World's Strongest Man. So I realised that you've got to go to these competitions and get used to it and get used to the environment, get used to the pressures and strains and the training and everything else. So I did set myself these little goals in that respect of, it was in preparation for the main goal. So my goal was to win England's Strongest Man in 2010, which I did. And then there was UK Strongest Man, which was a step up, different federation, but it was a step up, and obviously it included Ireland and Scotland and Wales. And then we've got Britain's Strongest Man, which again is a bit different to UK Strongest Man, just a slightly different federation, bit more higher end athletes. And, you know, I won the UK Strongest Man at 23. The year after I won England's Strongest Man, youngest man ever to win the UK's. And then I won Britain's Strongest Man at 24, I believe. And again, I think I was one of the youngest guys ever to win it. And then I think I won UK Strongest Man 6 years in a row.
That's incredible.
So every year I just kept going back. And
so I should imagine every win though, you're getting stronger in body and mind.
More confidence, yeah, definitely, physically and mentally. I won Britain's Strongest Man 5 years in a row. And then you've got all the competitions like Europe's Strongest Man. You know, I just competed, I never won Europe's Strongest Man, but just being in that competitive environment, going up against some of the best in the world was just great, you know. I suppose that competition environment is what I needed to simulate over and over and over. So I was just comfortable. Being in front of the cameras, being in front of crowds and having other athletes there competing with you, because it's completely different to training in the gym. So that's why, you know, I set these little goals. I mean, the 500 kilo deadlift was, people think I trained for years for that. I didn't. It was like a side quest. It was just something that popped up. I was training for the World's Strongest Man and I just happened to be good at deadlift. So, you know, the opportunity came around to set this 500 kilo target and earn some good money from it. You know, there's great prize money, sponsors off the back of that. So I just knew that was something I needed to do to set me up financially as well, because, you know, people forget this as well. 7 years ago, I was a full-time truck mechanic.
What was that life like?
Horrible.
Really?
Horrible.
Just getting up early.
Just soul destroying.
Non-stop. Yeah, so during the time you were doing that, to be fair, a truck mechanic's quite a high-profile job in that respect of skill and everything else. So, I mean, when you're doing that, are you actually all day thinking, I'm better than they, I'm going to be going there anyway, so it's not that bad? Is that
I
what
think
you're
I knew
thinking?
all along it was a stepping stone. It's something that It's something that I did because I knew I had to pay the bills, pay my mortgage. I had to pay electric and gas and food like everybody else and support my wife and kids. So it's something that I had to do. And also, strongman's an expensive sport. You know, we're talking £250 a week just on food, just for me. We're not talking, you know, wife and kids, that's just for me. And I had to fund all that myself. The day job in the door business was a drag. It was a drag on my strongman career. It's something that I had to do to pay the bills, but working 10 hours under a truck is not ideal to then go and train 4 hours in the gym. I was knackered. You know, I was going to the gym every night. I was walking into the gym fucked, and then doing a 4-hour training session, getting home at 10 o'clock, eating my tea, going to bed, and getting up at 6 a.m. again to do it all again. And that was every day. And I'll never forget coming home from the gym every single night, literally head in hands, saying to my wife, I fucking hate my life. Literally.
Yeah, really.
That's how I used to say that out loud. I fucking hate my life. I hate my job. I hate my boss. Don't want to sound horrible. I'd hate any boss. You know, I just hated working under somebody. And I just, you know, even though I had the door business that was really good, I hated that because it was just so time restraining on my strongman career. So
Did Alex have to talk you around a lot though? And
Yeah.
reassure you and say, listen, Ed, it's not that bad. And then the next day you wake up a little bit more positive.
I think we both just saw the bigger picture of me becoming, you know, the world's strongest man. The world's strongest man was the key. You know, you're not gonna be a millionaire from winning the world's strongest man. The prize money is shit. You know, it's $50,000 for winning the world's strongest man. But I knew it was the key to success after life. You know, being the world's strongest man, having that title behind me is allowed me to go onto these TV shows, have my own, you know, Eddie Eats America, have the Strongest Man in History channel, have a huge YouTube channel, do all these PR and sponsorships. It's allowed me to make money. It's gave me an opportunity to ride the wave off the back of the title, and by fuck I have. But I always know this. If I came second, none of this would be here. No one gives a fuck about second place. And that's the harsh reality of any sport. 100 years from now, they're not going to remember who came second. It's who won it. And that's the harsh reality. And I've got to keep reminding myself of that. I'm very fucking lucky to have done what I've done and, you know, had the career I've had so far.
It's unbelievable how from 2010 to 2017, 7 years, that goal's been achieved. It's just mind-blowing. And you've had a lot of acclaim for that, even celebrity. Jason Statham, you're on set of Expendables. You know, these guys just cannot believe, you know, your achievements in strength, especially like, you know, the world's strongest man and the deadlift, which, you know, to this day still not being in competition. So I just want to know, Eddie, between 2010 and 2017, were there any times when you thought, I've had enough, I'm going to quit, I need to go and find something else to do?
Every day was a suffering, if I'm being honest. You know, working 10 hours a day in the day job, and then do 4 hours training, and then 4 nights a week going and working the doors 11 till 3 in the morning, you know, moonlighting. Every day was a horrible day. Every day I was knackered, every day I was shattered. But I plodded on with that. Don't get me wrong, I mean, if you look back in videos and pictures of me, I had black circles under my eyes. I was just always, you know, in my day job, I can say it now, fuck who I was working for. I'd literally lock myself in the disabled toilet and sleep, you know, every opportunity. You know, even if it's 10, 15 minutes, sometimes an hour, I just lock myself in there, get a coat and just go to sleep because I was just that shattered. So apart from that, you know, it's just the ups and downs of strongman. And I think one of the hardest points was, the thing is, when you're not a pro, it actually costs you money. So until you're at the world stage, you don't make any money from strongman. So, you know, going and competing at these shows like Britain's Strongest Man, UK Strongest Man, and you're doing it, you know, you're losing money. You're spending money on hotels, flights, physios, everything else. You're out of pocket doing that. And then I think it got to 2014, and I went to the World Deadlift Champs in Leeds. And I pulled the world record deadlift. I pulled 461 kilos for a new world record. And I dropped the weight. So I lifted it up, the referee gave me the down signal, and I dropped the deadlift. So he disallowed the lift, which is just such a frustrating thing to happen. You did the hard part, all you had to do was follow it to the ground. And because I let the lift go and disallowed the lift, I didn't get any prize money. Zero. Wow. But the prize money for doing the lift was $10,000. But because I didn't lower it to the floor, I got nothing. So I actually lost money that weekend. And I came home that weekend and I said to my wife, I was like, I'm done. I'm fucking done with this. I'm working 80 plus hours a week, training 20 plus hours a week. I'm absolutely killing myself. I'm losing money. And for what? To rip biceps and triceps and hamstrings off. Why am I fucking doing this? So I said to my wife, I'm done. I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. And it was that weekend that, you know, my wife we all sat down together and that was like the big decision. You know, do I carry on doing strongman or not? And I was adamant. I'm like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm just going to work on my day job, try and work up the ranks in that. I'm going to try and get my door business more flourishing, get it expand, you know, get it bigger, and just work on that. It's my wife that said, what the fuck are you on about? You've just won. Come this far. You've just pulled a world record deadlift. You're UK strongest man 3 years in a row. You've won Britain's strongest man. What the fuck is wrong with you? You've just proved yourself you can be the best in the world at something. You can go on and win the world's strongest man. And it was my wife that gave me that flick switch moment of like, fucking hell. You know what, you're right. I've got to make a decision now. And the decision was to either quit or carry on the way I was with my door business and day job. And I decided that I'm going to be a full-time strongman. Fuck it, I'm going to go balls deep. You know, I had enough money in the bank to sort of keep me safe for a little bit, but I'm going to go for it. So I sold the door business. I quit my day job, and that weekend actually made me become a pro strongman. And again, I turned a massive failure on its head, and I turned it into a positive. It gave me a reason to quit my job and sell my door business and become a pro strongman. So that massive low turned into then a massive height. Monday morning, I just rung my boss. I was like, mate, I'm not coming in. I'm not coming into work. I did 6 months sick pay. So I'm not very well. I'm not coming in. Never went back. And from then on, getting up every day was exciting because I wasn't getting up to work for a multi-billion-pound company. I was getting up to work for myself. And that was the best feeling in the world. The best. There's nothing better than getting up and working for yourself every day. So yeah, there's definitely highs and lows, and that was probably one of the worst. And then there's been lots of like, you know, coming second, third place at Europe's Strongest Man, not qualifying for the final at Worlds till 2014, you know, just missing out on the final in 2013. There's loads of ups and downs, but I say you've just got to, with competing, you've got to take it all in your stride and use that negative as a positive. Always flip it on its head. It's like, right, I've just come last. Why did I come last? Because I did shit on the Atlas stones. Right, I'm going to work on my Atlas stones. Everything's got a reason to come back stronger. Right, so I want to go back to the deadlift. Just explain to me, what was the aftermath like? Because I know you was on that with the blood pressure and everything else. At that point, then, are you thinking, again, is this all worth it? Or were you worried about your health at that point? I mean, the aftermath was quite difficult. I mean, I knew it was to the point in my career where I was probably getting towards my biggest. I think when I did the 500 kilo deadlift, it was about 186 kilos, so it's like 400 plus pounds. In stone wise, we're probably talking like 28 and a half, 29 stone in English terms. Crazy. I mean, the aftermath was quite bad. I had a bleed on the brain. Took me a few weeks to recover. Did they take you straight to the hospital from the venue? Or did they just... No, I never went. Really? I never went, but I saw a doctor and he said, there's no doubt in my mind you had a bleed on the brain. Just because of the symptoms. I had blood coming out, the tear ducts, blood in the ear, coughing up blood. It was just a horrendous experience. I had the signs of concussion for about 2 weeks. So, you know, I was forgetting people's names, forgetting conversations, kept repeating myself. You know, I think it was my son's birthday party the next day and I was like having a conversation with someone and then repeating myself. And even they were like, Ed, you just fucking said that. And it was just like, that was just so hard to hear back. And like, I thought I was in real trouble. Was it worth it? Like the 500 kilo deadlift? I mean, again, it was a side quest. It was something that just on the cuff, I'll go for it. My title, my main goal was the world's strongest man that year. Yeah, 100%. If I could do it all again, I would add more weight on and do it all again. 100%. Yeah.
I mean, it's just madness, the amount of weight to lift that.
It makes me feel sick now.
Yeah.
The thought to put in 400 kilo on a bar
Yeah.
right now would, like, I don't think I could do it. 500 kilos, it's just obscene. Again, it was the impossible. It was the unheard of. When I said it out loud, I think in 2015, I said I was going to pull 500 kilo. I was laughed out the stadium. The promoters laughed at me. The other strongman laughed at me. Social media laughed at me. But again, I knew it was possible. Everyone said it was impossible, and I was just like, you know what, fuck you.
But you've had this trait from being 5 years of age, haven't you?
Yeah, I love the
You know
negativity
that.
some ways. Every laugh is another bit of log or coal on the fire. It just ignites you even more.
I mean, the energy in that crowd must have been unreal as well, because the crowd were huge, wasn't it?
Still to this day, the biggest strongman crowd in history. 12,000 people. There's never been a bigger crowd than that at one single strongman event.
The big fight.
Yeah.
What I want to speak about is, you know, when you've taken that fight on, you've become world's strongest man, everything's going up, and you know you're growing as a businessman, a personality, everything else that goes with that. I mean, what was your first thoughts to taking a fight on? Is it something just like them early years where you thought, you know, I'll learn how to be it, I'll become the best at that? And
If I'm being brutally honest, I think at the time, if I'd have been asked 6 months earlier, I'd have said no.
yes,
But I think the timing of it was perfect because we'd just gone into a lockdown. You know, we were 2 months into a lockdown and all my work had stopped dead. Everything. There was nobody was working. There was only supermarkets open. And for me, it was quite a worrying time.
yeah,
You know, I thought to myself, how the fuck am I going to make a living?
Yeah.
Everything stopped. And I thought, you know, is it ever going to pick back up again? And then I get offered a $1 million contract to fight somebody who has wronged me anyway. And I thought, how can I turn this down? How can I say no to this? So, you know, that's why I took the fight on, is because it was offered to me during a very sort of weird and sketchy time in my life. And of course, you know, I wanted a little bit of, you know, I wanted to punch Thor in the face, point blank. You know, I think, you know, he wronged me enough for me to justify to want to smack this guy in the lips. So yeah, that's why I took the fight.
If you could go back in a time machine, would you have took it at the same time, even though we're going into lockdown, or would you maybe?
I think if I could go back in a time machine, knowing what I know now, I think I'd have probably stuck to my roots.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, building my brand, doing TV shows, doing YouTube videos. I just think that, you know, the boxing side of things, I mean, it's just such a hell on earth struggle for me. You know, I blew my bicep off. I had COVID twice during the prep. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but it was just one of the worst prepped things I've ever done in my life. So if I could turn back the clock and take a different direction, I would definitely just concentrate on the basics.
How different was it to get in shape for the boxing compared to getting in shape for World's Strongest Man? What's the comparison with that?
I mean, to get in shape for the boxing was hard. You know, when I signed the contract, I was 175 kilos, so I was still like 27 and a half stone when I signed the contract to fight for. So yeah, it was tough for me to sort of get my body weight down, get into doing runs and swims and boxing and whatever else. It was hell on earth.
How did you find the CV side of things?
Horrible.
Did you get some
Point blank.
Did they take you to some like big hills around here and stuff?
Nah, man, I just did my own thing. You know, I went out for runs, did the swimming, did the cardio, did the boxing, and just got stuck into it on my own accord, really. But I just found it so hard. You know, being a big guy.
I think. Would you say you're definitely a lot healthier than when you trained to be a strongest man, though?
Yes. Yes. No, in some ways, you know, I work with a lot of doctors and specialists, and obviously I've caught COVID 4 times now in the last 2 years. And my main doctor said to me, like, if you'd have caught COVID at 175 kilo, there was no doubt in my mind you would have died. No doubt in my mind. And she said it just the bigger guys just seem to suffer. The bigger you are, the harder you fall with COVID. And I think me losing that weight and just getting that bit fitter saved my life in the long run.
It saved your life,
Yeah.
like from that side of things, Eddie. But I think you're going to have grown so much and learnt so much from it again. And I think you're just going to go on to even bigger and better things.
Yeah. No, I do. I think everything happens for a reason.
It was a fascinating journey for viewers. I think the difficulty of, I mean, me from a promoter side of things, how the timing of like releasing the fight, and when eventually it came, because it was a very short period, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It should have, personally, I think it should have been done over a good 6 to 8 months.
Oh yeah.
I think it was definitely enjoyed by many. I mean, what was it like in there? What was the energy like once you got in that ring? Was it?
Oh, it was a thrill.
Yeah.
I've never had such a thrill in my life.
Again, better than when you did the World's Strongest Man in them finals, or is it different type?
Just different type, just like a massive sort of adrenaline rush. You know, don't get me wrong, I've had many fights in my life, but you've got to remember that fight lasted 24 minutes. You know, you've had fights in your life, you know, usually done and dusted in 30 seconds. And to have that different aspect to a fight of, you know, having the endurance and having the skill to sort of dodge punches and get under and over and land shots, it was a thrill. You know, really was an experience. I would recommend it to anyone. Definitely, if you got a grudge with someone, get in the ring and have it out, because you feel better after.
In your heart, would you like to have a rematch, or do you think you just want to move on now? What do you?
I think I'd like to have a rematch, but I just think with all the opportunities coming my way in life, I don't really know. You know, I've got so much being thrown at me with TV shows and opportunity, endorsements and sponsorships. It's like, I can't do both.
No.
I can't do both. And, you know, you've got to pick a path sometimes. And I've got to think what's best, not just for me, for my family as well. And the boxing side of things was just so stressful. You know, I blew my bicep off 8 weeks out from the fight. And then 6 months later, it was rescheduled. And you know, my surgeon said to me, "You can't be."
How is it now?
Still healing. And, you know,
Where's the incision on the other side?
We're just getting to a year now. There's the incision there. You know, the surgeon said to me, "You can't throw a hard punch for a year, you know." And I was like, "Well, you know, I'm meant to be fighting in 8 weeks." He's like, "Well, you have to reschedule it for at least a year." Spoke to the promoter, and he's like, "I'll give you 6 months." So, you know, I was fucked in that respect, and that was just the most stressful thing, was dealing with that. You got to remember, 6 months, 3 months, 4 months of that was locked. You know, I couldn't actually physically use my arm, so I could only actually use my arm for the last 8 weeks of the prep for the fight. It was hell on earth. It was the most stressful thing I've ever done. So, in that respect, when I think of it like that, what's best for not just for me and my family, you know, I've got to weigh things up. I'm still weighing things up right now.
Yeah, because it's a long process to sit and plan and plot your what's coming ahead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We've just
exactly.
come out of a pandemic, like you say, you've got a lot of offers, and I think, you know, you're growing every day. You're still frigging 35, 36. You know, you've got
34.
Well,
yeah.
exactly. You've got so much time to plan that next step, and I think it's going to be very exciting for everyone to see where you do go next.
Yeah.
But I think, like you mentioned before about family and stuff, I mean, how was it throughout the boxing? Did Alex and Nat, you know, would you say they suffered with the stress?
Yeah, everyone suffered. You know, again, it was just such a strenuous prep, losing the bicep and having COVID twice. It just wasn't a nice journey for me. I kept burning out. You know, I kept doing too much, trying to keep up with all my work as well, and doing the boxing training. I probably burnt out 5 or 6 times. You know, just got to a point and just broke down. You know, just way too much for me. And it did affect the family. You know, me and Alex, you know, we barely went out because we were so scared of me catching COVID again.
Really?
It's like we didn't leave the house. You know, we had to get people to do a shopping for us and all sorts. It was a very stressful time. And then, you know, even like the fight itself, you know, like 8 weeks out, it's like, right, that's it. So, you know, my birthday was screwed because that was like, you know, didn't celebrate my birthday, didn't do any of that stuff. So yeah, when you weigh it up like that, you know, what stress it put on the family, it was a lot. It was a hell of a lot.
So what would you say going forward your ideal situation would be with the direction you want to go?
Me right now, getting back to basics, you know, getting back into the flow of training, normal training, keeping fit, keeping strong, keeping healthy, picking up with all my TV shows that I've been putting off for the last 2 years. So I'm, you know, picking up with the Eddie Eats America, Strongest Man in History, that kind of stuff. I've got more TV shows on offer as well. So just picking up with the basics again, and then see where I'm at. You know, because end of the day, I've spent 2 years of saying no to absolutely everyone, turning shitloads of work down and opportunities. And I think I realise now some of the opportunities were amazing, and I've just turned them all down. I need to investigate them and see what path I want to take.
How did you enjoy the experience in Expendables with Mr. Stallone?
I did, yeah. Being on set of the Expendables was pretty cool. You know, I was in a scene with Sylvester Stallone and Jason Statham, and they were cool as fuck. Got to be honest.
They're good guys, aren't they?
Jason Statham's just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Sylvester Stallone's cool, but first time I met Jason Statham, and I've got to say, what a humble guy he is. You know, he actually came up and proper fangirled on me.
Yeah.
Straight away, he was like, Eddie Hall, oh my God.
Put a post on you on Instagram, didn't he, about the deadlift?
He was like, he knew all about my swimming background, my deadlift, the world's strongest man, knew everything about me, and I was just so humbled. I was like, wow. You know, I thought it was going to be the other way around. You know, I was fangirling, he completely fangirled on me. And it was such a nice thing for a big global star like that, just to be so humble and down to earth and just be a normal human being. So yeah, Statham's definitely, when I met him, he definitely went up in my book. He was a phenomenal guy. Brilliant.
Do you think you're going to look more opportunities with the acting and movie world?
Yeah, I'm keeping my toe in the acting world. I've got some series coming up, and obviously the TV shows, and then it's something I don't take too serious though, I must admit. You know, I like to have a nice relaxed approach on that. If an opportunity comes up, like a role, I'll go and cast for it, so to say. But you know, I've done a couple of years of acting lessons, and that's paid off. But I'm not taking it too serious. You know, I'm not like pulling my hair out thinking I've got to land a movie role here or there. I just take it as it comes. People reach out, and I'll say yes or no. So it's a nice place to be. You know, I'm not. I think in the acting world, people tend to go for these, you know, like I say, low-key roles. It's sort of like, you know, cameos and stuff. And I don't want to be that guy that just appears for 4 seconds in a movie. You know, take the good stuff and just lay back and see what comes.
Looking forward to the Expendables being released. Do we know when it's coming yet?
I think later this year.
Yeah,
perhaps
going to be a
late
good
summer.
To see that. I think that might, you know, catapult other things as well, like you said, and then just take it as well as you go.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Right, Ed. So I wish I had more time. I'm sure we're going to do a part 2. Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Cheers.
Thanks.